Hi, it's Sam here again. So in this episode, I'm actually not going to show an awful lot of character animator. What instead I'm going to be talking about is how to plan out to do the audio section of it. So this is more of a planning sort of thing. Not much computer work in this episode. So there's a few different ways of doing the audio, and you just really need to decide which way you want to go. And the easiest way of thinking of two completely different ways of doing it is one, you could treat it like a radio show. You record all the audio, you get a track per actor and maybe another track for the music, and you can actually use Adobe Audition for putting this all together. You lay all the tracks together, you get all the leveling right between the tracks, the music levels and the dubbing, and once you've got all of that, you can then start exporting one character at a time to export their audio track. So you just mute all the other channels and export one audio track at a time, knowing that you've got all the timing exactly right in the audio. And then using that, you then start animating it. And so you animate to the audio. And so the audio is really determining the master timeline, if you like. It's the thing that you're working towards. And I sort of call that radio show animation, because if you just listen to the audio tracks, it'd be like a radio show. And if that sounds all good, well, then you're just adding the bonus of animations to it. Now, the other philosophy is to instead record lots of small audio clips. And then by doing every single bit of line of speech as a separate audio clip, so you've got lots more little files all over the place. And if you don't like lots of files, you might not like that approach very much. But the benefit of it is you can drag the files around in the timeline, and we'll show a little bit of doing that. And by dragging them around, you can line them up with the animation. So you can build the animation and then position the audio at the right spots. So we'll show a little bit, but not going to show everything. Just a bit hard to do. So let's first have a little quick look at another program in the Adobe suite called Adobe Audition. Now, I'm actually using Audition to do a whole lot of things to this voice. Trying to reduce the noise levels, dampen it to make sure I don't go too far out. And so I can't actually demonstrate because I wouldn't be able to talk. But in particular, there's this multi-track mode, and what you can do is you can create a series of additional tracks. And so what you'd normally do is you create a separate track per voice actor. And that allows you then, when you play back the tracks, to mute all of them except one character. And then you can have one full-length audio recording for character one, another, then you mute all the characters except the second character and export that, and then you get there's things like file export. You can export all sorts of things, and so you end up with one audio track per character, and that's important. You don't want them all in the one track because it'll be really painful to use over in Character Animator afterwards. You really want at least, you never want to mix two characters, and you never want to mix music into the same track as a character. Because if you mix the music in, what you want to be able to do is to take that audio track and then generate the lip sync. And Character Animator doesn't recognize music as different from voice, and so it'll just turn the music into speech. Not particularly useful. Cool. So I'm not actually, as I said, sorry, I can't actually demonstrate how to do this without messing up my actual voice. But the important thing is to think about is multi-track, create a track per voice actor and a separate track for the music. But it does really have the benefit of you get all the leveling right, you get all the sounds right, you get all the timing right, and you build everything from there. I'm just going to minimize that. We come back to here. Let's bring up our favorite Wookie. Oops, wrong button. I'm just getting out of the way. Okay, so we got the Wookie. I don't need to be here, so I'm just going to get rid of myself. And then let's just clean this up a little bit. I'm just dragging at a rectangle and going to hit the delete key. Delete key, and it just deletes it all up. So we got a nice clean scene to start with. And I'm going to scroll down to the transform. I'm going to scale the Wookie up because we're just going to see his mouth. And let's get him positioned nicely. I'm just dragging the position X and the position Y to get him in the right position in the scene. Cool. Let's turn on the face, which will give him things like eyebrows. We've got lip sync on. Cool. Okay. So you can actually record sound inside Character Animator as well. And that could be useful just to mock things up. And so let's just pretend for the moment. I'm going to turn the lip sync off. And so what I'll normally do is I'll use a separate microphone or something, not this actual software. I'll often try and go to a room that's got nice soft surfaces. If I record in front of a computer, the computer's got this hard, flat screen right in front of you, and it creates an echo. And no amount of audio processing can ever get rid of that echo unless you're a genius. But basically, people give up. And so the best place is to find somewhere that doesn't have hard, flat surfaces near you. Like you've got a room with curtains. I often use the bedroom because you've got beds and carpet and a whole lot of things that are nice and soft and it won't create echoes. And so I'd never actually recommend doing a real record at a laptop. But let's just... we've got the microphone on, and I'm just going to do a record. Wookies are great. You should join me every day. And what's happened is, I had the face behavior on as well, so let's delete that. You can see here's my audio recording. There's a little bit of a delay at the beginning. I could trim that off if I wanted to, just grab it on the edge. If I play it back, I'm afraid you can't hear it. I haven't got the output of this program wired up into the input into the streaming software. So you won't actually be able to see it. But I've now got this audio recording. But if I play it, if you go up here under Edit Preferences, I'm going to try something I didn't try before. So this is the output, sending it to the NDI. The audio output is, so this is getting off the scene, but I've actually got this virtual software. It's called a VB Audio Virtual Cable, which is it's what allows me to send the output of one program to the input of another one. So the OBS Studio is microwave recording it. So maybe it's great. Now, you should join me. Oh, I'm not sure. I couldn't hear it, but maybe you could. So the question is, if I've got these recordings, let's say I've recorded it all externally. I've loaded it up into Adobe Audition. So Audition has got a number of effects which are really useful. It's got all sorts of, and I'm not going to give a crash course on sound or mixing and all that sort of stuff. It's a huge topic. But there is this thing like noise reduction, and it's worth reading the manual up on it because by using noise reduction, you can get rid of the background hiss and so forth from a normal recording, and it's really useful. And so there's a number of things in here. You can just improve the quality of the sound that's in Adobe Audition. And so what I normally do is I record my audio, use Adobe Audition to clean it up, but then I export a whole lot of little audio clips in. I'll cut them out, every single one. And the reason I do that is because I want them to span scenes. If you've got long scene, it's fine having a long audio clip. But if you've got lots of short scenes, then sometimes it's easier just chopping it up into short little bits. When you get into it, you'll probably get what I mean. But anyway, okay, so how do I take this audio clip that maybe I've imported? Because if I do a file import, it supports several formats, including audio files. So it understands WAV files and MP3 files. And so you can load a few different audio formats in. It's not only pictures. It's pictures, certainly. You can import puppets, but you could also import audio files. So let's just pretend I imported that one. How do I get the Wookie? I'm going to slide it. I've just grabbed it and slide it back. How do I get the Wookie's lips? Oh, it wasn't at the beginning. How do I get the Wookie's lips to move? Well, what you can do is if you select the Wookie, make sure lip sync is armed, hold down the shift and click on that audio as well. So now I've got the puppet and the audio file and puppet, no, timeline, where is it? Compute lip sync from scene audio. Now you've got to select them and you've got to have lip sync armed. And if you do this, it computes the visemes automatically from the audio file. It won't do the face recognition ones like smile. It's only going to do the sound ones. Wookies are great. Now you should join me. I've got all the visemes. Now, if I don't like the visemes, you can come in and say, oh, no, that wasn't really meant to be an S, or it was in the wrong spot. I can just drag that along so you can get it sort of aligned with the audio better. Or you can come along and replace it with a different shape. Oops. No, that wasn't really very good. Let's try a... And so you can change the visemes and edit them down here as well if you really want to. I quite like the defaults. It does a pretty good job. And so if I'd recorded one audio file for the whole scene, I would have just dropped that audio file right at the beginning, had one audio file per character, and then I just select the right audio file for the Wookie, and done a compute lip sync for the whole scene, and it would have worked it all out, all the way down the whole scene, which can be rather convenient. What's next? Yeah, so if you go the route of having lots of little audio clips, the recordings you make inside, by the way, go into this recordings directory, and these are all the dates that have made audio recordings. So here's the one from today, and this is actually this one. And so how do you manage all these audio things? Well, if I'd made them externally, I use a numbering scheme. And so I'll often give the scenes a number, the locations. I work at some sort of hierarchy. And based on that hierarchy, I'll use numbers like 1-2-3, 1-2-4, 1-2-5, and so forth. And by breaking that down, I've organized every location is the first number, every shot, a camera angle is the second number, and then I just give every line within that shot a third number. And it just helps me organize all the files so that they I can work out where any file belongs in the overall scene. And so it helps to be organized. If you don't get organized with some sort of scheme like that, and you end up with an audio file per line of your script, you're going to end up with a lot of files, and it gets very painful very quickly to try and manage. You don't want to do that. Cool. What else? Is there anything else for audio? So I think that's basically it. There's really just the two approaches that I normally think about. one. Let's finish up and come back. Cool. So just to recap, there's really two approaches. One is I'll use something like Adobe Audition to create multiple tracks. And actually, OK Samurai, Dave Werner from Adobe, he's got a really good video. That's where I sort of heard about this one from. And he goes into actually how to use Adobe Audition to actually create the multi-track recording and then export the individual tracks. So you record them all together, you mix it all together, you get all the levels right. Yeah, you mix it all. Had the microphone off there. Yeah, you mix it all, you get all the levels right between the tracks, but you put each actor in their own track and a separate track for music, because if you feed music through lip sync, it just can't cope. It's just not a pretty sight. And the other approach is to use Adobe Audition again. There's another program, free program called Audacity. It's also really, really good. But if you've got Character Animator, you've got Adobe Audition, and so it's also really good. And so then the other approach then is to chop the input, the audio, into lots of little fragments of one line each, and then you can just drag them around in the timeline and position and align them with the animation. And so if animation is going to control your timing, I prefer using lots of little audio clips. And if the audio, like you plan out the audio like a radio show, is going to control the timing, then I'd recommend having one track per character and set up the whole thing as a radio show, get it to sound good as you like with any sound effects and so forth. Then export one track at a time across to Character Animator of exporting the character voices. You may actually do the final mixing of all the audio in something like Premiere Pro. You don't have to do it in Character Animator. That's just a quick choice. But there's really lots of talking in this one, less showing, but it's worthwhile thinking how you're going to map out that, manage your audio. Okay. See you next time.